The dusty plaza of Cedar Ridge baked under the merciless August sun. Its packed earth was as hard and unforgiving as the lives scratched out in this mountain settlement. Cowboys lounged against hitching posts, their spurs catching glints of light. Merchants called out from weather-bleached storefronts. Women in faded calico dresses hurried past, parasols tilted against both the sun and the crude stares of idle men. Into this ordinary afternoon walked Martha Coleman, though folks called her the mountain medicine woman when they needed her help, and worse names when they didn't. She stood tall for a woman, her dark skin gleaming with sweat, her homespun dress plain but practical. A leather satchel bulged at her side, filled with herbs and mountain roots, her tools of healing. She stopped dead center of the plaza. The chatter died down as her sharp eyes searched the men lounging nearby. Then she locked on one man, a stranger sitting on the saloon steps, hat pulled low, coat dusty from the trail. Unlike the others, he hadn't joined in the smirks and whispers that followed her. His hand rested easy near the worn handle of his Colt, his calm steady amid the noise. Martha squared her shoulders and strode straight toward him, boots crunching on the hard earth. She stopped just 3 feet away, close enough that he had to tilt his head back to meet her gaze. "You," she said, voice cutting through the heat and laughter like a rifle crack. "Tonight, you're coming to my bed." The plaza erupted. Laughter rolled through the crowd, men slapping knees and hollering crude jokes. A whistle pierced the air. But the stranger didn't laugh. His gray eyes, cold as a winter storm, studied her with quiet intensity. He saw what the others didn't, the tremor in her fists, the desperate courage holding her upright. "Ma'am," he said slowly, his voice a low rumble that carried. "That's a mighty bold proposition for a Sunday afternoon." "I'm not proposing anything improper," Martha said, lifting her chin. "I need a husband, legal and proper, and you look like a man who might listen to reason before you listen to fools." That silenced the jeering. This wasn't madness. This was business. And in Cedar Ridge, business meant survival. The cowboy rose to his feet, towering over her by a few inches. His shadow fell across her as he tipped his hat. "Name's Samuel Hawkins," he said. "Most folks call me Sam. And you are?" "Martha Coleman, daughter of Josiah Coleman." Recognition flickered in his eyes. Everyone had heard of Josiah, the freedman who'd managed to claim 1,200 acres of silver-rich mountain land, and who'd died mysteriously 3 months back. "I heard about your father," Sam said. "Heard you might be having some trouble with his holdings." "Trouble's one word for it," Martha replied bitterly. She reached into her satchel and pulled out a folded paper bearing the seal of the territorial court. "Says here, I've got 30 days to marry or forfeit everything he built. 23 have already passed." Sam frowned. "And the men who were courting you?" "They left," she said flatly. "One to California, one to Missouri, and one disappeared after someone made it worth his while." Quote, "Someone like Mayor Aldrich," Sam said quietly. Martha didn't answer, but her silence told him everything. Aldrich owned half the town and wanted the rest. "Why me?" Sam asked. "You don't know a thing about me." "I know you've been in town 3 days," Martha said. "I know Aldrich offered you work keeping the peace during the cattle drives, and I know you haven't taken his money yet. You're either honest or patient. Either way, you're not his man." Sam's gaze lingered on her, weighing her words. "And what exactly are you offering?" "Partnership," she said firmly. "Marriage in name, legal and binding. You get 20% of the silver profits and a roof when you need one. After a year, if you want to go, we part ways clean. No harm done." "And if I say no?" Martha's shoulders sagged for just a heartbeat before she lifted them again. "Then in 7 days, Aldrich takes everything my father bled for. The land, the mine, the house my mother died in. And I'll know I failed him, because I was too proud to ask a stranger for help." The crowd had fallen silent again. Even the wind seemed to pause. Sam removed his hat, running a hand through his hair as he studied her. a woman standing in the middle of a town ready to laugh her out of existence, yet refusing to break. "When?" he asked finally. "Judge Peters' ride circuit through town Tuesday," she said. "We could." "Tonight," Sam interrupted. "Reverend Mills can do the ceremony." "If we're doing this, we're doing it before Aldrich can stop it." Martha blinked, startled. "You mean?" "I mean what I said," he replied. "But before we stand in front of God and the Reverend, we talk in private." He offered his arm. The crowd gasped again. A gentleman's gesture, in a moment no one would forget. She hesitated, then laid her hand in his. Together they walked through the stunned onlookers, whispers following like a dust storm. Behind a store window, Mayor Aldrich watched, his expression turning dark as coal. "He's not going to let this happen easily," Sam murmured. "I know," Martha said quietly. "That's why I chose a man who wears a gun." Quote, They made their way to the small, whitewashed church on the edge of town, its walls glowing in the afternoon sun. Inside, the air was cool and quiet, heavy with dust and prayer. Sam sat on a back pew, motioning for her to sit beside him. "Now," he said, "tell me the real story, all of it." Martha drew a breath. "My father was born into slavery in Virginia, fought for the Union, came west with his pay and a dream. He could read and write, knew contracts, law. That's how he got the land, paid back taxes before anyone else knew what was happening. He taught me everything, how to read law books, how to assay silver ore, how to heal." Her voice dropped. "Last winter he fell ill. Trembling hands, confusion, visions. Doc Morrison, Aldrich's cousin, called it mountain fever, but it wasn't. I found his medicine later, laced with mercury. Enough to drive a man mad." Sam's jaw tightened. "You're saying he was poisoned." "I'm saying he was murdered," Martha said, "but I can't prove it, not yet. Still, if I keep the land, I keep his fight alive." Quote. Sam leaned forward, eyes steady on hers. "And you trust me with all this? A stranger?" "My father used to say, 'Desperation makes philosophers of us all,'" she replied softly. "Besides, you're not just any drifter. I know who you are, Mr. Hawkins. The man who faced down the Wallace gang in Amarillo, who stopped a range war in Nebraska. You solve problems." Sam gave a faint smile. "Those stories get bigger every time they're told." "Then maybe it's time for another," Martha said, meeting his gaze. "One about a mountain woman and a cowboy who stood up to a town full of thieves." Sam rose, extending his hand. "Then let's start it right, by finding a preacher before Aldrich finds us." They stepped out into the golden light, bound by necessity and something deeper neither dared name. As they rode toward the church door, the sun dipped behind the mountains, throwing long shadows across Cedar Ridge. And somewhere in those shadows, Mayor Aldrich's plans began to stir. The little white church at the edge of Cedar Ridge stood in the fading glow of sunset. Reverend Mills had just doused the lamps when the door creaked open and in stepped Martha Coleman, tall and proud, with Samuel Hawkins beside her. They were followed by two witnesses, Mrs. Chen, the elderly laundress with iron in her spine, and Pete Winters, a grizzled prospector who'd known Josiah Coleman back when the mountains were still wild. Reverend Mills peered at them through round spectacles. "Evening, Miss Coleman, Mr. Hawkins. This is sudden." "Urgent, Reverend," Martha said. "By law, I've got to be married within a week or lose my father's land." Mills frowned, rubbing the back of his neck. "Marriage is sacred, not business." "It's both," Sam said quietly. "But I give my word, Reverend, this ain't a sham. It's a promise to stand beside her when no one else would." Mills studied them, then sighed. "Well, I suppose God sees the truth of it better than I. Let's get to it before someone decides to interfere." The small group gathered before the wooden cross. Candlelight flickered across rough-hewn pews and weary faces. The air smelled faintly of old wood and lamp oil. Martha's heart hammered in her chest. She told herself this was only business, a necessary step to save her father's legacy. But when Sam took her hand, warmth shot through her like sunlight after winter. "Do you, Samuel James Hawkins, take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife?" Reverend Mills asked. "I do," Sam said, voice steady and deep. "And do you, Martha Grace Coleman, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband?" "I do," she replied softly. Mills hesitated. "Well then, by the power vested in me by the territory of Colorado and the Almighty above, I pronounce you husband and wife. You may shake hands." Sam smiled faintly and lifted Martha's hand to his lips instead, pressing a gentle kiss against her knuckles. The gesture sent murmurs through the room. Even Reverend Mills' eyebrows rose. "Mrs. Hawkins," Sam said formally. "Mr. Hawkins," she replied, feeling the weight and strange warmth of her new name. They signed the registry. Mrs. Chen and Pete added their signatures as witnesses. The ink was barely dry when the church door burst open. Jake Morrison, the doctor's brother and Mayor Aldrich's hired enforcer, stood framed in the doorway with 3 armed men behind him. "Well, ain't this cozy?" Morrison sneered. "Heard the medicine woman found herself a husband. Shame I wasn't invited to the wedding." Sam moved smoothly, placing himself between the intruders and Martha. "Private ceremony. Family only." "Family?" Morrison laughed harshly. "A drifter, a half-breed, a Chinese woman, and an old prospector? That's your family?" Pete Winters took a step forward, gripping his walking stick tight. "Better family than snakes like you." The church air grew heavy. Sam's voice cut through it, calm but lethal. "You planning to draw that gun in God's house, Morrison? Because if you do, you'll meet him quick." Morrison hesitated. Sam's reputation had spread farther than the man himself. He'd faced down killers before and walked away every time. "No need for ruffled feathers," Morrison said finally, though his hand still hovered near his holster. "Just came to deliver a message from Mayor Aldrich." He tossed an envelope onto a pew. "Seems your dear, departed papa owed the mayor quite a bit. Debts come due by week's end." Martha snatched up the papers, scanning them by the flickering candlelight. "Lies," she said sharply. "My father never borrowed a cent." "Prove it," Morrison said, grinning. "Aldrich's got witnesses, signatures, seals, everything the law needs." "We'll see what the judge says," Sam replied evenly. "Now, get out." For a long moment, no one moved. Then Morrison sneered and motioned to his men. "This ain't over, Hawkins. You tied yourself to a losing hand. Hope she's worth it." They left, spurs clinking against the wooden floor, leaving behind the acrid smell of dust and threat. Mrs. Chen laid a hand on Martha's shoulder. "You strong girl. Your father proud tonight." Martha smiled faintly. "Thank you, Mrs. Chen, and thank you, Pete." Pete nodded. "You've got grit, girl. But grit won't be enough. Aldrich plays dirty." "That's why I married a man who knows how to play rough," Martha said. Later, outside under a moonlit sky, Sam helped her into the saddle. The town lay quiet, the only sounds the creak of leather and the distant howl of coyotes. "You sure about this, Martha?" Sam asked. "What happened tonight proves Aldrich won't stop." "I know," she said, "but my father built that land with his hands. I won't let a thief tear it apart." They rode in silence back toward the mountains. The trail wound through dark pines and the scent of wild sage. Martha led him up the narrow path to her cabin. A sturdy structure of hand-hewn logs, its chimney still faintly smoking. "Papa built this," she said, her voice softening. "Said a man's home should be as strong as his word." Inside, the cabin glowed with firelight. Shelves lined the walls, filled with jars of herbs and roots. Books stacked in neat rows. Law, medicine, botany. A world built on learning. Sam looked around, surprised. "You've got more knowledge here than most doctors I've met." "Knowledge doesn't care about color or schooling," Martha said simply. She hung her satchel on a hook and stirred the fire. "Coffee or tea?" "Coffee," Sam said, settling into a chair. As she worked, he studied the court document she'd shown him. "This law, it's too specific. Only applies to unmarried women with land over 1,000 acres. That's not coincidence." Martha nodded grimly. "Aldrich had a hand in it. The law was written to strip women like me of what we inherited." Sam leaned back, the chair creaking under his weight. Then he killed your father when that wasn't enough. She looked up sharply, pain flashing in her eyes. I can't prove it yet, but yes. A knock rattled the door. Both froze. Sam's gun was in his hand before the sound died. Martha moved to the window, peering out into the dark. 6 riders? She whispered. That's Jake Morrison leading them. Sam stood, checking the revolver's load. Stay inside. You'll do no such thing alone, Martha said firmly, grabbing the rifle from above the door. This is my land, my fight. He gave a small grin. I see I married a woman who doesn't scare easy. They stepped out onto the porch as the riders reined in their horses. The air was cold and sharp. Evening, Martha, Morrison called. Heard you got yourself hitched. Thought we'd pay our respects. Your respects smell like coal oil and lies, Martha replied. Say what you came to say. Morrison's grin faltered. Just making sure our mayor's property stays in good hands. This land isn't the mayor's, Sam said flatly. It's hers, and now it's mine, too. You sure you want to claim that, Hawkins? Aldrich don't forgive easy. Sam's voice turned to steel. Then he'll learn to forget. The standoff stretched, then Morrison spat into the dirt. We'll be seeing you around. He turned his horse, leading the men back down the trail. Only when their hoofbeats faded did Martha lower the rifle. They'll be back. Yes, Sam said, holstering his Colt, but not tonight. Martha exhaled slowly, the tension draining from her shoulders. You realize what you've gotten yourself into? Sam glanced toward the mountains, their peaks silver under moonlight. A fight worth having. She studied him for a long moment, then smiled faintly. My father used to say, surviving's not enough. You've got to build something worth living for. Maybe together we can. Sam looked at her, this strong, stubborn woman with eyes that burned like firelight. Maybe we already started. As they stepped back inside, the first stars began to fade behind gathering clouds. In the distance, thunder rolled low across the peaks, as if the mountains themselves were warning of the storm yet to come. Dawn broke pale and cold over the mountains. Smoke still rose from the charred remains of Martha's supply shed, all that was left after the fire. Sam had been right. Someone had crept up in the night and poured coal oil on the walls. The attack was meant as a warning, but Martha took it as a declaration of war. When Sam examined the blackened boards, he found the faint imprint of a boot heel, worn on the left side. Morrison, he said. No question. Martha crouched beside him, her face set. He'll answer for it. But first I have people to heal and work to replace. Then we'll start with what we can rebuild, Sam said, and make the ones behind this regret ever thinking you were alone. By mid-morning they were in town, riding through streets buzzing with gossip. People whispered, eyes darting between Martha and Sam. Some looked curious. Others looked afraid. Their first stop was the boarding house where Jake Morrison was eating breakfast. Sam kicked open the door, sending dishes rattling. The room fell silent. Mornin', Morrison, Sam said, walking in with quiet authority. We need to talk about that fire. Morrison smirked, still chewing his eggs. You got proof? Sam upended the table, sending plates crashing. Your boot print and your smell are proof enough. Morrison's chair scraped back, his hand going for his pistol, but he froze when he found Sam's Colt already aimed dead center at his chest. You think you can scare me? Morrison spat. Not trying to scare you, Sam said calmly, trying to teach you manners. Martha stepped forward, voice like flint. You burned medicine meant for sick children. You nearly killed people for greed. Morrison's face turned red. You can't. $60? Sam interrupted. Now, call it repayment for damages. 60. Sam cocked the hammer. Morrison swallowed and fumbled for his wallet, tossing the bills onto the ruined table. This ain't over, he hissed. No, Sam said, holstering his gun. It's just starting. They walked out into the street as the onlookers scattered. From there they went to the general store, where Thomas Garrett, one of Martha's former suitors, greeted them nervously. Shelves half empty, the man's hands trembled as he tried to fill orders. Aldrich's raised freight costs again, he admitted. Half the merchants in town can't afford to restock. He's bleeding us dry. Then maybe we start our own freight line, Sam said. Garrett blinked. You'd take on Aldrich's monopoly? Martha's eyes burned bright. We'll take on whatever keeps honest people poor. You in or not? Garrett hesitated, then nodded. You've got yourself a partner. Quote. By noon, word spread that the mountain woman and her new husband were forming alliances, with ranchers, miners, and shopkeepers all tired of Aldrich's control, but their enemies struck back fast. That evening, a crowd gathered near the saloon where Mrs. Chen's laundry had been overturned by Morrison's men. The old woman stood surrounded, her clothes scattered in the dirt. "Get this filth out of town," one man shouted. "Town council passed a new law," Morrison said smugly. "No foreigners inside town limits." Mrs. Chen's jaw trembled, but her voice was steady. "I've been here 20 years, longer than you've been breathing." Morrison reached for her arm. He didn't get the chance. Sam's hand clamped around his wrist, twisting until Morrison dropped to his knees with a grunt. "The lady's not interested in your help," Sam said coldly. "And since when does the council meet in the middle of the night?" A murmur rippled through the crowd. "Mayor Aldrich, Doc Morrison, and Banker Hutchins voted it through," someone said. "So 3 men made a law for everyone?" Martha stepped forward, helping Mrs. Chen gather her clothes. "That's not law. That's theft." The people muttered agreement. "I'm calling a town meeting," Martha declared, her voice rising. "Tonight, 7 o'clock at the hall. Everyone who owns so much as an acre of land, come and be heard." "You can't do that," Morrison barked. "She can," Sam said, smiling grimly. "The law allows it." "I think you'd read the statutes by now." That night, the town hall overflowed. Men and women packed shoulder to shoulder, whispering nervously as Martha took the podium. "Citizens of Cedar Ridge," she began, her voice steady and strong. "We've all felt the weight of one man's greed. Mayor Aldrich has taken our water, our freight, our livelihoods. He's poisoned this town with fear, but fear only rules when good people stay silent." A murmur of agreement spread. "Tonight," she continued, "we decide if Cedar Ridge belongs to us or to him." Outside, Sam stood near the door, his revolvers ready. He could see Morrison's men gathering in the shadows, itching for trouble. But inside, Martha's words held the crowd spellbound. "We've been told we're too poor, too small, too different to matter," she said. "But we've already proved them wrong. We're still here. And if we stand together, no one, not Aldrich, not his hired guns, not his crooked laws, can take that from us." A cheer rose, growing louder until it shook the rafters. Sam's instincts flared. A whisper of danger. He caught a flash of movement through the window. A man raised a rifle. Sam dove, shoving Martha to the floor as the bullet shattered the window. Chaos erupted. People screamed. He rolled to his knees, drew, and fired once. The gunman fell back into the street, weapon clattering from his hand. "Everyone stay down!" Sam barked, scanning the dark outside. No more shots came. Martha rose beside him, glass in her hair but eyes blazing. "He's escalating! He's desperate!" "He's losing," Sam said grimly. By dawn, the story of the shooting spread like wildfire, and so did the truth of Aldrich's corruption. More people came forward with records, letters, ledgers. Within days, word arrived that Judge Carter and a federal marshal were on their way to investigate the town's disputes. When the judge arrived, the hearing was held in the same hall that still bore the bullet holes. Aldrich strutted in with his lawyer, trying to look calm. Martha and Sam sat across the room, their tables stacked with their father's papers and Garrett's ledgers. Carter listened as both sides presented their claims. Aldrich accused Martha of witchcraft, fraud, and forgery, but one by one his witnesses faltered. Mrs. Willis confessed she'd been bribed to lie. Garrett's records exposed years of theft. Then Martha produced the vial of mercury. "This," she said, holding it up, "was found in my father's medicine. Tested in Denver, poison, given by Doc Morrison at Mayor Aldrich's order." The courtroom gasped. And when a thin man from Denver stood up in the back, a chemist named Crawley, and admitted Aldrich had paid him to supply the poison, the last of the mayor's power crumbled. Judge Carter slammed his gavel. "Mayor Aldrich, you're under arrest for murder and fraud." "Dr. Morrison, for conspiracy. The land of Josiah Coleman is rightfully his daughter's. Case closed." The hall exploded in cheers. Sam turned to Martha. "It's over." She looked up at him, tears bright in her eyes. "No," she said softly, "it's just beginning." Months later, Cedar Ridge was a new town. The silver mine became a cooperative. A small school opened where Aldrich's office once stood. And on Main Street, a wooden sign read, "Hawkins and Hawkins, Healing and Justice." Martha taught medicine to anyone willing to learn, white, black, or Mexican alike. Sam kept peace without firing a shot. Together, they built what her father had dreamed of, a community rooted in fairness. One evening, as the sun turned the peaks to gold, Sam found Martha in the garden, teaching children to recognize healing herbs. He leaned on the porch rail, smiling. "Hard to believe," he said. "All this started with you ordering me to your bed." Martha laughed, soft and full. "Desperate times call for bold measures." Sam stepped closer, brushing a stray curl from her cheek. "Reckon they do, but it's been the best decision I ever made." She smiled up at him, the mountain wind lifting her hair. "You're lucky I did, cowboy. You'd have wandered right past your destiny." He chuckled low in his chest. "Guess I would've, but I found it. Right here." As night fell, the stars came out over Cedar Ridge. The mountains stood silent and eternal, watching over the town reborn from courage and love. The mountain woman and her cowboy had started with a desperate bargain and ended with a legacy. Their names would live on in the valley long after they were gone, a reminder that sometimes the Wild West bravest battles were fought not with bullets, but with heart.